Welcome to this session titled Importance of Quality Home-Based Education, Cultural Relevancy, and Addressing Behavior Within Your Community. I am Dr. Cheryl Fieldsmith, co-founder of the Black Family Home Educator and Scholars Organization, and this is our second annual teach-in. Welcome, so grateful to have you here, and without further ado, I will turn it over to each of you.
Welcome, welcome everybody. I'm so glad everyone is here. We are excited to present today. Let me get our PowerPoint up. Can you disable
sorry.
screen share?
Yes, I will do that.
No, it's fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome.
Okay, try now.
Okay. Perfect. All right. All right, welcome everyone. So today we are going to be discussing the importance of two things. One, home-based quality education, but also two, how do you provide that home-based quality education, but also two, providing or addressing behaviors in your community. I am Chizarra Dashiell, Behavior Specialist, President, CFO, and Director of Special Populations with Grow and Give Learning Corporation. So what is applied behavior analysis? Applied behavior analysis, it is addressing behaviors that are socially significant in the community. An example of this would be something of the sort of, for example, if your child was eloping or running away from you while you were actually trying to like purchase something in the grocery market, that would be a behavior, for example, that we would actually address for you, because that would actually provide harm or malice to your child in the community. So again, applied behavior analysis is identifying behaviors that are socially significant, they are observable and measurable, and we impact by intervention. This is just a little bit of background about just giving some feedback and some credentialing of our field. It is an evidence-based practice. It is a licensed practice. So just giving you some information about that. Research and behaviors. So there was a study that was currently done where 53 parents who received 2 years of early intervention behavior services. And so they did provide, or it was shown that behavior intervention does help in addressing behaviors in the community when these parents were providing home educational services. Here is the reference of the article if you choose to look it up for further information. Another article, whatever, that I actually found was actually using applied behavior analysis and offering it as an intervention in treating children with autism spectrum disorder. And so I know that commonly in our population, especially among Black and Brown, autism is not really addressed, especially in a homeschool environment. Here is an article that actually states and goes into further detail about how addressing autism and using ABA as a resourceful intervention in the community and its effectiveness. So what does all of this mean? What does this mean for our community? So as president of Grow and Give Learning Corporation, one of our models is that we actually teach to culturally relevant, literature, and using resources such as ABA to teach to that context. So some of the principles that we use, is one, children are honored for their cultural connections. And so what that means is that when we actually developed our curriculum and developed our lessons, we wanted to make sure that, one, that it was relatable, it actually mirrored them. And so it's important that, you know, when you're actually teaching to or providing resources, any type of learning materials, that it is culturally relevant and it is relatable, such as using books and stories, which we commonly use in our lessons. Another principle of ours is pairing or developing positive interactions with parents, guardians, or other specialists. It's important that, we do want to make sure that we do have effective lessons, and we created all this wonderful, materials and things of that sort, whatever, to actually deliver to our kiddo. But then also too, it's important that before we actually get into actually providing the lessons or that structured material, that we actually pair with them. We build a bonding relationship. And so those can lead to compliancy, those can lead to positive behaviors, but also too, it can also lead to attending, which attending is a skill set that not only you need for just homeschooling, you need it in everyday life skill sets. Another principle of ours is home-based learning areas that are physically inviting. And so, like, we know that we have the lessons, and we know that we have the materials that we actually need or that we want to provide in implementing our lessons, but also too, we need to make our environment inviting. And so making sure that it's welcoming for our kiddos for when they start every day. And so having things like those reinforcements, having those things that they prefer to actually work for, those are kind of things or whatever that are important and actually motivate that child in participation and continuation in whatever the required task is. Students are reinforced by positive behaviors, recognizing the desired behaviors, decreasing the personal biases. So what this means is that, even though we might have our personal judgment off of certain behaviors, we're not going to imply them as we're actually teaching or providing any kind of lessons or any kind of structures for them. We're going to continue to reinforce and encourage those positive behaviors that we do actually see that they're doing in the lessons, that they're doing in the community, that they're doing every day. And so that's one of the things that we hone on as far as that grow and give learning. Adjusting instructional strategies to meet your child's needs and cultural styles. And so we all have our own preference. And so we all have our own way and how we want to imply or, deliver our materials and how we want our lesson structure to actually be. But it's important that we have flexibility. Flexibility meaning that, maybe if we start our lesson at 9 o'clock and your kiddo's not necessarily feeling well and they're not feeling up to it, that we actually start at 11 o'clock. Yes, it causes us, the adult, an inconvenience because we might have our own agenda or our own schedule. However, the goal is for your child to actually be successful. And so in being successful is that we do need to teach them and model for them flexibility, because that is one of the things that we commonly need in just every day. So how does this impact us as parents and professionals? One, by having all of these principles in place, it increases instructional control. Instructional control is one of the key components, not only of applied behavior analysis, but also too, it's one of the key components that you need for any kind of implementation or any kind of academic structure. And so it's important that we, in order to gain that instructional control, again, is having that pairing, having that relationship, setting up their environment for success. Also, to decrease undesired behaviors. So having, again, that flexibility in the schedule. And so knowing that, okay, if my kiddo is a little tired or a little cranky or whatever today, and they really don't want to actually do it at this time, maybe we can wait 15 minutes or give them a break in between the lessons, or give them, some type of reinforcement that they actually want, or something that's preferred for them that they actually want to work for. We can have that for them a little bit more frequently because today may be a little rougher day. And so understanding that predictability helps decrease those undesired behaviors that we may see. The other thing is the completion of more tasks and activities. As our kiddos, grow and, get older, the responsibilities increase. They don't decrease, they increase. And especially we want them to understand that not only that, yes, we are starting here and I'm only requiring this of you, but there is certain levels of expectation as you progress and get older and progressing through your education. And so we want them to be set up for success. So applying all of these guided principles again, or whatever, builds them up and works them up to more completion of activities and tasks. I will now transition it over to my other panelist, Leroy Smith.
So greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our panel today. My name is Leroy Smith. I am the COO and Director of Instructional Design and Research here at Grow and Give Learning Incorporated. And we're talking now about something that's really important to me is holistic learning and how that relates to home-based education. And we're looking at two components that leads to the third overall sum that we're looking for, which is socio-emotional learning, or SEL, which a lot of us are probably familiar with, we've probably heard before. Cultural relevance, which is just making sure what we're teaching is actually relevant to our children, their lives, and their communities. And that equals holistic learning. And holistic learning, as a basic definition that we're doing today, is just making sure that all of the learning experiences our children have at home and in the community is meaningful to them in a healthy and productive way for not only themselves, but for others. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we are. So, social emotional learning, I'm going to go through a brief, this is a definition according to the Collaborative of Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL for short. Social emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. It's the process through which young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, which is huge for our children. That's why so many of our families here actually wanted to homeschool their children, or maybe their children began in public school or private school, parochial school, and they went to homeschool, is to develop a healthy sense of identity with family and community. Manage emotions, which is huge because the way that our children, specifically our Black and Brown children, have to manage their emotions in certain spaces is different. Achieve personal and collective goals, which is huge in our community. It's not just the personal part, but the collective part is growing as a family and community. And feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions, which are all essential for any home-based or any curriculum that we have or any lesson that you do with your child. It advances educational equity and excellence through authentic school, family, community partnerships. That school could just be a homeschool, whether you're a homeschool collective or co-op or just a single homeschool. Those community partnerships establish trusting and collaborative relationships, which is huge in our community. Trust and collaboration goes a long way within the Black and Brown communities, and SEL is right at the center of that. It makes for rigorous and meaningful curriculum of instruction and ongoing evaluation. It can help address the various forms of inequity. So for a lot of our families here in your curriculum, especially I saw some, I forgot the presenter yesterday, she was talking about decolonizing the curriculum. This is a huge part of that SEL is talking about taking back our history and making sure our children and our community members are learning a history that is appropriate for them in their developmental level and their cultural space. Next slide. So here we're going to bring a brief video of what CASEL defines as social emotional learning. You can click on the video to start it.
Are you using Google Classroom for learning management? Well, let me introduce you to its perfect companion.
Think about the young people in your lives and all the different places where they're learning about themselves, how to relate to others, and work together on goals. How can we intentionally create learning experiences that will help all young people develop and maintain positive relationships, become lifelong learners, and contribute to a more caring, just world? Educators, researchers, community members, families, and the students themselves agree What we need is social and emotional learning, or SEL. SEL is the process through which young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that help us to understand ourselves, connect with others, achieve our goals, and support our communities. We all need opportunities to learn and engage in environments where we feel safe, valued, and a sense of belonging. So how does SEL help schools, families, and communities work together so that all young people have these kinds of learning experiences and achieve success in education, careers, and life? CASTLE's framework identifies 5 areas of competence that together help us develop a healthy sense of who we are, manage stress, understand the views of others, and work together to create schools and communities where everyone can grow their strengths and interests. Self-awareness is about how we think about ourselves and who we are. It includes understanding our culture, our thoughts, feelings, and what we believe we're capable of, and understanding how these things can influence our behaviors and beliefs. Self-management is the ability to manage those emotions, thoughts, and actions in different situations so that we can achieve individual and collective goals. This includes coping with stress and anxiety, persevering through challenges, and taking action to create positive change. Social awareness is how we understand others, how we learn to take different perspectives and empathize even with people who are different from us. It also includes understanding how the broader norms and systems around us influence how we develop and create a sense of belonging. Relationship skills are how we connect and engage effectively with others, and how we form lasting friendships and connections. This includes communicating clearly, solving problems together, managing conflict and disagreements, and standing up for ourselves and the rights of others. Lastly, responsible decision-making is how we put it all together to make caring and constructive choices. This includes thinking critically about consequences, analyzing the impact of our actions on ourselves and others, and identifying solutions that support our collective well-being. We continue to develop and practice SEL throughout our lives and can adapt and apply these competencies across different contexts and cultures. How we develop SEL is impacted by our environments, which is why we need to work together across classrooms, schools, families, and communities. In the classroom, students can be explicitly taught SEL skills and also can practice and apply SEL during core subjects, like discussing different perspectives in social studies and language arts, or collaboratively problem solving in science or math. SEL is most effective when supported by evidence-based programs and trusting relationships where students are treated as partners in their learning. Beyond the classroom, SEL can be intentionally promoted throughout the school experience, from the way they're greeted in the morning to how discipline practices are carried out and how adults themselves develop and model positive relationships and the SEL competencies. Outside of school, families and caregivers provide the earliest and ongoing learning and interactions for their children, so it's important that schools listen to and authentically partner with families to help shape SEL priorities and strategies for supporting their children. Similarly, when schools partner with community organizations to align their efforts, SEL opportunities can be strengthened and students benefit even more. With SEL, we can help create schools and learning spaces where all young people feel connected, inspired, engaged, and ready to contribute to the world around them.
Next slide, please.
Who's ready?
Okay, so here we are. So this is the CASTLE framework, and this is one tool you can look at. You've probably seen it before or heard about it before. It's used both in some homeschool teachers who have a background in teaching in schools also use it at home, and some people use it in the schools. So we use the CASTLE framework within our curriculum that's called Academics Are Us. And what we're looking at is we're looking at these competency areas for our children, and these can be easy things to accomplish at home. And actually, I think are probably easier to accomplish at home than if your child were in a traditional brick and mortar school. Self-awareness. This is huge for our children who are Black and Brown. This is all about recognizing your self-worth. So many times, our children, our families, and our communities have been fed the message that our children are not worthy, our families are not worthy, we're lazy, we're all these negative things. But when you gain control of the social emotional learning aspect of whatever curriculum you're using, or if you're creating your own curriculum, or your child is working with different teachers or tutors, you need to think, is my child being reaffirmed of being a wonderfully, beautifully created child and human being? And is there, in this case, Blackness, is their love, is their family being reaffirmed through the curriculum and through their holistic home-based education? Self-management is another huge part of this, is how do our children manage their emotions, their thoughts, and their language during instruction, before instruction, and after instruction, not only in our homeschools and our homeschool cooperatives or co-ops, but in the community. How do they, our children, we know what the world is for our children. We don't have to sit here and sugarcoat it, but how do they manage themselves in the community in a way that they can maintain their calm even when they're going through stressful situations? And how do they also promote their self-management to be a role model to others in the community or within our homeschools to maintain calm and composure even in stressful situations? Social awareness is also about what's happening around us, what's happening in the home, what's happening in a co-op, what's happening in a community. Who is the person where we get our food from? Who is the person that we get our milk from? Who is the person who, is the corner store owner, whomever that may be? Not only just the people who are in our community, but globally, are our children actually examining what other people go through in the world that may look like them or may not look like them? Relationship skills. This is a huge part, probably my favorite part of the competencies, is once a child has the ability to recognize themselves and confirm themselves in the world without any validation from anyone else, they can manage their calm and composure. They're aware of other people and situations. Here's where the real work begins of society building. And this is where it comes from, not just your home-based education, but starts to come out into community-based education that becomes then institutionalized eventually in some of like the programs and organizations we have now with the Black families educators, Black homeschool family educators and scholars, which is more the organizational part, building relationships with other co-ops and homeschool parents and teachers, and teaching our children the importance of trade, the importance of commerce, the importance of sharing, the importance of understanding who may be an ally and who may not be an ally, the importance of understanding that you're not always going to be friendly with everyone, but you have to manage to get through certain things that are stressful situations or may not be desirable situations. And responsible decision making, which is the summation of all of this. Hopefully, when our children are confirmed, they are aware, they can manage themselves, they know how to navigate relationship skills with different people, whether they be friends or foes. They are now able to make responsible decisions, not only for themselves, but for others. So we want our children to grow from their home-based education to not only make these decisions about what I need to do for my own learning, but to everyone else. Next slide, please. Oh, I loved someone in the chat. I'll just highlight it. Amelia Peace, my small family group is building a community-based learning for our kids. Thank you. It's so important because oftentimes, and you all hear it, we see it, I don't have to repeat those things to you, but oftentimes our community is under attack for not doing the right thing. And this is why home-based education and homeschooling is so important. So we can teach our kids that, no, we are a wonderful community. Every community has its issues. That's just the way of the world. But we, as a Black and Brown families and whatever kind of families you have, blended or mixed or whatever it may be, that you are worthy and that anything that someone else says out there should not matter, because we have already reinforced those behaviors that Chizarra was talking about. We have reinforced that our children are worthy. So if they happen to hear that they are not outside of our home, they can ignore that. They can say, you know what, I don't care what they're talking about. I know I'm worthy because my family, my community has taught me that I am worthy. And I know how to navigate my life and the lives of others to get to where I need to get to. This gets us to the second component of a holistic education in the home-based education kind of space, is cultural relevance. Now that we've gotten into all the components of social emotional learning, combining that with cultural relevance is huge. So I'll read you a few quotes from a little bit of research around cultural relevance. Thus, culturally relevant pedagogy must provide a way for students to maintain their cultural integrity while succeeding academically. This is something that we see as a huge issue. I'm still a classroom teacher in a public school, and I see this a lot, and I work with some homeschool families, and I see this a lot just with homeschool families have the capability and the fortitude and the love and compassion and the drive to both maintain the cultural integrity of their children, but also help them to succeed academically. And sometimes we see this. I saw this in a presentation, a coffee talk with Brother Parker, Professor Parker, where he talked about the Malcolm X quote, like, you know, only a fool will let their enemy educate their children. And, you know, some people believe that, some people don't. But in this case, it's talking about how do we get our kids to achieve academically while not stripping them away from their cultural assets, because they all bring gold with them. That's why I love that song by Esperanza Spalding, Black Gold. They're born with gold, just gold-plated body, armor all around them. How do we keep that part of them there and enhance it? And how do we also get them to become strong academics? The next quote here is, not only must teachers encourage academic success and cultural competence, they must help students recognize, understand, and critique current social inequities. So it's one part of this is just talking about like, okay, we're doing everything we need to do in our homeschool, in our co-op, and we're good. Now, yes, that may be true for you, and that may be your space, and that may be where you are operating at right now, because everyone has their capacity. But this is an important part as well, is there must be an accurate critique of social inequities. There must be an understanding that, yes, you may feel great. My children in my homeschool feel great. They recognize and love their Blackness, their community. They're doing all these things, but they must also recognize that some of their other community members who do not have those same experiences may not have those things. And they're going to interact with those people, whether, you know, they think they are or they're not. So how do we get them to critique the social inequities that help out their community members? And also, how does that translate back to the home? And the last quote here, a culturally relevant pedagogy is designed to problematize. I love this. If you are not causing a ruckus in your teaching with your child, then the question is, what kind of cultural relevant teaching are you doing? You should feel uncomfortable addressing certain topics with your child. Like, are they ready for this? Can they handle that? I really want them to do it, but I'm not sure. Maybe they're not old enough. Maybe they don't get it enough. But that's the space that we must exist in, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters out there, our children, when they leave out our homes, they are already in an uncomfortable space, because this space was not created for them outside of our homes. So we are not problematizing the teaching, then how are we modeling to our children how to deal with the problems outside of our household, and sometimes even in our households? And so that's the nature of curriculum, schooling, and assessment. We can go to the next slide.
Smith, you just hit that one, that last one. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. That last one. That was it.
I'm telling you, if you are not making, because
you need to take a moment and say that last one. Yeah.
That last, because think about it. If your children are not equipped to deal with the problems that they may have as individuals and within their home and community, trust and believe they will be met with problems. And if they can't deal with their own problems, how will they deal with other problems outside of that? And trust and believe, our enemies that may be, whatever the powers may be, are okay with our children living in comfort and confusion. So you gotta be willing in your home-based education to say, you know what, I want to put in my big boy, big girl shoes today. This may not be comfortable for me, but is necessary for my child or my children in my community. Next slide, please. Oh, go ahead, Chizarra. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I was going to say, and that's why it's important to develop those appropriate behavior skill sets, because when they are faced with different things, they know how to appropriately respond to it.
Exactly.
So often, sometimes, or whatever, the media depicts us as that we don't have good coping skills. And so we want to have our children ready. That's what it is.
Amen to that. I see an amen in the chat too. Next slide. So what we're going to do is just show a SEL and cultural relevance exemplar from a part of our curriculum that we've designed. And we're looking at just a small little snippet because we want you to see kind of like how we're at least addressing this in the curriculum aspect of it, because I know curriculum is a huge thing for homeschool families. In general, like how do we address these things? It's great that you're saying all these things, Leroy and Chizarra, but where and how do you actually address these things? So this particular unit is the Academics RS ABA Infused Literacy, and we're looking at wants versus needs. You can go back to slides. And in this unit, we talk specifically about making responsible decisions, looking at what's a want versus a need. And this is a huge one in our community, especially when it comes to wealth building and income and debt. What is a want versus a need? This is something that's extremely crucial. And if it isn't a part of your economics or math lessons, it should become a part of that at a certain point, because you want your child to discern, do I really need this thing, or is it just a want? Can I wait for that? And that's a self-regulation piece of delayed gratification. Or maybe I just don't have it right now, or maybe my family doesn't have it right now. Maybe it's just not for us, but we need these other things to survive and thrive. Next slide, please. So here's an example. Let's take a look. So we have something that's called an ABA Grow Point, which is a question or framing in a curriculum where we want the parents who are delivering this education to our children. One slide, please. Uh-oh, it just keeps moving. Go. Okay, there we are. So it's a moment of, no, it's okay. It's a moment for reflection and it's a moment to teach. So I'm just gonna model what's said here. We said that wants are things people like having, like toys and games. Now this curriculum we wrote is for 3 through 5-year-olds. So we're trying to make it very concrete developmentally for our children, but also still teaching, we got to problematize this because wants and needs is an issue in our community and in our homes sometimes. We said that needs are things people must have in order to live, like, go back one, there we go. We said that needs are things people must have in order to live, like food, water, clothing, and housing. On page 4, so we're referencing a culturally relevant book. The author writes the question, can you guess what they'll bring Molly? Molly's the main character, who's a Black little girl who gets all of these birthday presents that she doesn't need and she just wants more and more and more. And then it says, what gifts would you bring to Molly's birthday party that she would need and why? So really question the kids at an early age, like, what would you bring Molly that she needs? Not what she wants, but what she needs. And so we're going to listen for the response. So we actually show you how to go through this. You wait for the child's response. And then we have to positively reinforce our children, building them up, saying, thank you for telling me what gifts you think Molly's guest will bring to her birthday party that will meet her needs. Remember, needs are things that people need to live. And scaffolded support. Sometimes our learners don't get the question. Sometimes they're not going to answer the question the way we think they're going to answer the question. So we need to think about how we're going to scaffold that learning and how to get them there even better. And just by saying here is, remember, needs are things that people need to live. Do you think someone needs to bring Molly food? That's what you want to hear. And then we wait for the response. And thank you for sharing that someone needs to bring Molly food. Food is a need because people need food to stay alive. Now, if your child is an advanced learner, you can take this little section and say, but guess what? Let's problematize it. Let's look at those social inequities. Do all of our neighbors have access to food? Do we live in a food desert? Do we have access to get to a grocery store? Is it a need to be close to a grocery store or a farm, or is it a want? Do all the foods we need to eat at the store, are they wants or needs? So you can really get into it and kind of take it your own direction at a certain point with these kind of questions. That's the importance of cultural relevance and SEL. When you combine them together, it might take you down another tangent, but that's going to help address those inequities and problematize your teaching. And then reinforcement time. This is what Chizarra was talking about, reinforcing the positive behaviors that we are looking for within our children. And it says, have your child's reinforcement readily available, whatever that may be. It might be an Oreo cookie, it might be gummy bears or whatever it may be, or whatever that reinforcement is, or time with the toy. Ensure the reinforcement is a reinforcement your child prefers to encourage engagement throughout the lesson. And then say, you earned let's say you earned some gummy bears because you answered my question. Keep up the great work. I know you will earn more gummy bears throughout this lesson. These are ways that we can keep our children engaged in very tough conversations by having a reinforcement there to support their social emotional learning development and also their cultural integrity development as well. Next slide.
Smith, if I don't mind, if I can just
interject,
I just want to interject or whatever about the reinforcement, because we're throwing out a lot of terminology. And so, reinforcement is something that is rewarding or motivating to that particular child or student. And so it's important that also too, I just want to make a point that when we are actually giving that reinforcement, make sure that is a reinforcement that your child has actually chosen. And so, because if your child is actually chose it, then they will work hard to actually receive it. A lot of times or whatever we do, often we kind of like try to shape or choose what our child or our student can actually receive. And so a lot of times we don't get on the back end the results that we actually want. So it's important for us or whatever to let the child choose, have choices in that reinforcement. So because they have the actual power, well, they think they have the power over what is actually occurring or the task that they're actually required to do.
And that's super important for our children specifically, is because where often in the spaces that we live in do our children get so much choice and the power to choose what works for them. We're putting our children in the seat of their own instruction. It's like Chizarra said, it's not just us choosing it for them. We're teaching them how to make responsible decisions for themselves at an early age. Remember, this curriculum is for 3 to 5-year-olds. We're telling them, no, you choose that reinforcement, and that's something you can work towards. Thank you, Chizarra, for the clarification. Next slide, please. All righty, so we are at pretty much kind of like close towards the ending point, but we wanted to do an interactive thing with everyone, which is a think tank kind of stop and jot. So we created a Padlet, and I want you to think about, it's gonna be an open forum for you. You can type, record, draw, upload pictures of what you learned about today. We're going to have some Q&A here. The comments will be moderated for people's safety, just in case there might be some comments that may be here or there. We just want to make sure everyone's safe. So we have a QR code here. I'm going to also put the link in the chat to the Padlet. And in this Padlet, you can jot anything that you want. And Chizarra, once you get a chance to, we can click on the link and see and share the Padlet. But let's give people a chance to kind of like get the QR code first. And if you don't have the QR code with your phone, you can look in the chat for the link to the Padlet. And this is an opportunity for you to just kind of stop and jot things that you're thinking about right now. With what we've kind of addressed, we've talked about addressing behaviors in the home and community. We've talked about how applied behavior analysis can be used to analyze those behaviors, and the specialists that are involved that are trained to support. We've talked about how you can embed SEL or think about SEL and cultural relevance within your curriculum. So we gave you a lot to think about, but now we want to give you a space to kind of air out what you're thinking and kind of record it so we can see what you all are thinking about or what you want to try differently or what you might need support with. And then we'll kind of talk about some of the things that we see on the Padlet. So now we can share we can reshare the screen to the Padlet. You also have the link, Chizarra. It's in the chat. You can click on the link, and then we'll be able to see the Padlet. We can share the screen in the Padlet. Oh, I see someone's already in. I love giving my child options and choices and reinforcement. This is huge aspects in the autism spectrum disorders. Yes, exactly.
Yes,
like
it is. That is very huge. Huge, huge, huge.
Think we have
Especially
one person jumping in. Go ahead, Chizarra.
No, I was going to say, especially with autism, it's such a, oh, wait a minute. I
Oh, did you
love
get a
giving my
chance to?
child, I love
Oh,
giving my child options. I'm
because we're still
sorry.
on. Can you share the screen to the Padlet? We're still on the PowerPoint right now. So people can.
No, I'm on the Padlet.
Okay,
You
I was just gonna say we can't see the I can't see the Padlet that you're sharing. I still just see the PowerPoint. If not, it's okay. It's okay because we can all see it from where we are.
I see it on my end. You don't see it on your end? Does anybody else see it? I see it on my end.
Because we can all see it on the Padlet, so you don't have to share. We can all see whatever.
Sometimes you have to switch what you're sharing. Like if you click on the share screen.
Oh, stop sharing and then reshare.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, I see it. I was like, Smith, I see it. Okay, let me reshare. Sorry, everybody. Okay, you got it?
There we are. We can see it now.
Okay. Oh, yeah, everybody was saying, no, we see the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I love giving, because I was like, I'm reading things. I'm like, I see it. I love giving my child options and choices and reinforcement. This is huge aspects. Okay, we read that one. Would love to know how I can implement with my child, implement this with my children. One of my daughters has ADHD and the other has anxiety. Ooh. So one of the things or whatever that I will suggest with you as far as with children with ADHD and anxiety is also too is having as much as you can predictability. And so predictability meaning that, they know what their day actually looks like, whether it be you write it down visually, what their day actually looks like, or you verbally tell them each day, whatever, what you actually have entailed. The more predictability you can build, the more comfortability and the more decrease of the behaviors. That's already been evidence-based shown. And so research has already been shown to actually support that. And so giving more predictability, building in more breaks or whatever in your schedule when you're doing your lessons and your learning times, that should help you as far as seeing some decrease in the anxiety and their ADHD behaviors. I will tell you this also too, if you do continue to have difficulties with that, I would highly suggest that you reach out to any type of behavior specialist of your choice to help you address and kind of like model and specifically come out and tailor a program specifically for your children. Agreed. Some with ADHD and anxiety definitely want to include them more on rewards. Yes, I think, it's funny because, in my field, we focus so much on autism, not saying that autism is not prevalent, it is prevalent and it definitely should be addressed. But I think that ADHD and anxiety is a real thing. And so it's not addressed enough. And so that is one of the other coping mechanisms that we should, as specialists and professionals and parents, we should be addressing more in the community. And so, yes, having more rewards, building more predictability, having more structure in the day, and also too having shorter intervals of time of what that requirement actually is. And so what that looks like is that if the requirement is that, this lesson is going to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes to get through, it's nothing wrong with breaking it up into 10-minute intervals. The goal is that you get through it. Yeah. Now, how you get through it is your own discretion, but the goal is you get through it. And so at the end of the day, it's rewarding for the kiddo that they know that they actually got through it. But then also too, it's rewarding for you because you got through it. And now you can move on to your next lesson tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And I was also going to add in there. The person who's done special education for years is that Oh, we're doing great for timing. Thank you for the reminder. Seeing our children's disabilities as accepting new challenges as opposed to a problem is extremely important here with the framing of how you do this, because anxiety is a normal human response to when we're looking forward to doing something new or something that's scary. And having an attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder just means your brain focuses on certain things at a certain time that may not be the thing we need to focus on at that time. So I think sometimes also too is I saw there was a session earlier in this week about organizational skills, which are really important for especially older learners, learning how to organize your time in that self-management piece. And I think also for anxiety is teaching your children specifically, there are two types of anxiety: healthy anxiety, when you're in flight, flight, or freeze, when you are actually in a situation where it's an emergency, or unhealthy anxiety, when you just keep, precipitating over the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you haven't even done it. So kind of distinguishing the two, because anxiety is a normal human response. It's just the context is in as well. And so we have a few more minutes left. Chizarra, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, a few more minutes left, and okay, I read that one. I think we read them. Oh, thank you for reframing like that. It is very real and very much a part of the day. Yes, it is. I think that a lot of times, it's hard to homeschool. Whew, it is hard. I give parents kudos in homeschooling. Honestly, my background, I had a background in occupational therapy, and then I transitioned and elevated to behaviors, but I'm not a parent. So I give kudos, salutes, like honestly, whatever, because homeschooling is tough work. It's tough work. Did you want to add anything, Smith?
Nope, we can go back to the slide to close out.
All right.
Participating
so I'm gonna stop sharing.
In that
share
part.
Again. I know, I'm good. Good. All right.
Alrighty, last slide. So we kind of did a Q&A, so we're going to wrap up.
I didn't know where you wanted to end at.
Right here, we kind of did a Q&A with the board that we had. So you can follow us on Instagram at Grow, Give, and Learn, and look us up on LinkedIn and our website, growandgivelearning.org. Here are our email addresses. If you're wondering about curriculum, you're wondering about how to meet the SEL, the cultural relevance, the behavior pieces to have a holistic learning. And that's pretty much it. We really hope you enjoyed this time. If you have, I don't know how much time we have left, but we really enjoyed everything that was here.
We did.
We did good for timing. We
did.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of information. And are you all on the marketplace too? Can they find
you?
Unfortunately, marketplace, but we can do like a forum or something that's in one of the chats.
Yes, please do that so that people can find you and talk more if they want to. Yes, that'll be great.
All right.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Smith, are you going to be participating in the 4 o'clock?
Yes, I'm at the 4 o'clock.
Yeah, he's at the 4. I know.
Yes,
he's at the 4 o'clock. I will not be at the 4 o'clock, but he will be at the 4 o'clock. I'll be rooting for you, Smith.
Okay, well, we will see you then. All right. I want to thank everyone for participating. I love the use of the Padlet. I use that in my teaching too. Really wonderful and engaging and informative. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
We will see you all in a few minutes at another session. Thank you. Bye.